Let's see here. So we do have just a quick brief announcement before I'm going to be turning it over to Melanie. I just wanted to share that pretty much after we have our keynote speaker, our Plática facilitator, that would, once we go through this healing ceremony that we'll be engaging, like that would also be the official culmination of our meeting today as well. We will take about a 5-minute break after that. And for those folks who are able and can to stay for an optional reflection activity, then we'll be able to do that. But for those folks who have other pieces and after the break, then you're also welcome to disconnect as well. But yeah, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melanie to do some introduction. So Melanie.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joel. So my name is Melanie Rocha, and I'm part of the CoCEAL steering committee. First, I'd like to go over some initial logistics for our guest speaker. The event will continue recording during Grace's first part of the Plática, and announcements will be made once recording stops. Folks can put questions on the virtual handout Google Doc for Grace that Joel has shared with you earlier, and drop virtual handout links on the chat box as well. Participants trying to log in while the Healing Circle ceremony is taking place will remain in the waiting room until the ceremony is complete. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our keynote speaker. Grace is a Mexican Chicana with ancestral indigenous roots in Sonora and Baja California. Like many families in Mexico, her mother and tias use cultural remedies to help keep their families healthy. She grew up experienced the curing of empacho through the abdominal sobadas that her mother gave her and watching her auntie cure neighborhood children of mal de ojo. Grace considers this path to be one of the lifelong learning and is committed to continuing to deepen her understanding of health and healing, as well as doing her own inner work in order to be of service to the best of her ability, to her community, and to the areas where she is invited to share her medicine. She continues her work with emphasis in respectfully reclaiming traditional culture and healing practices. Let's provide a warm virtual welcome to Grace. Thank you.
Grace, I think if you might be muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, good morning. I'll start over again. Buenos dias. I want to thank Melanie and Joel and CoCEAL for inviting me to be a part of this morning today of your gala. I appreciate this opportunity to be of service to you all in this new way through Zoom and in this virtual way that sometimes for us can be a little bit different because we're not used to it, but at the same time has provided a new opportunity for us to reconnect or connect with each other across communities. So for that, I'm very grateful. I want to also add to Melanie's introduction that I am a grandmother of 4 wonderful boys, 5 wonderful boys, and 1 adopted granddaughter. And wife, I'm a sister, I'm a tita to a lot of people. I'd like to think that I've helped quite a few people on their path, both personally as well as on their business and professional journey. Lately, more and more people have reached out, more organizations have reached out to me because of COVID, because of all the traumas that our communities have been reliving in many instances. And it's traditional. I'd like to acknowledge that I am coming to you from the beautiful land of Kumeyaay people, and I want to share just a couple of slides with you. One of the first things when we're meeting friends and family and working with indigenous, especially indigenous communities, Mexicano communities, the first thing that we always say is, ¿de dónde eres? ¿Quién eres y de dónde eres? And so as Melanie said, I was born in Mexicali, Baja California. On my father's side, we're mestizo yaqui. On my mother's side, I am mestiza from one of the nations down there, but it's not documented, so I will not mention the name of that nation in particularly. But I am very drawn to my indigenous roots. And as my father taught me very early in life, knowing mi lugar, knowing my place is very important. And also understanding that as Mexican people, we're also indigenous people. We're also people who are of this continent. And that we always acknowledge where we are living. And we acknowledge that the lands, even though the lands, as he used to love to point out, the lands were stolen from us indigenous people. Nevertheless, we are related. And so I want to share this slide with you, these images, because these images are from this beautiful land, Kumeyaay land, that is now known as San Diego, California, where I am currently living. And this is a land where it's filled with medicine plants, it's filled with beautiful mountains and deserts, and of course, near the ocean, lots of sacred places. And this is where Kumeyaay people continue to live and carry out ceremony and continue to work on regaining spiritual practices and regaining their lands. So in that spirit, I want to acknowledge the ancestors of the original peoples of this land, but also I want to acknowledge the original peoples of the land where you are and the land where I live part of the time, which is in Nederland, Colorado. So for that, I want to thank the Arapaho people for welcoming me and my family to their lands in Colorado. I particularly want to acknowledge Arapaho Elder Crawford White and his wife, Jacqueline Gabo White. Elder Crawford White passed on a couple of years ago, but he was someone who I met a few times, and I was always impressed with his demeanor, with his kindness. Both him and his wife were, when I first met him was at the Boulder Indigenous Peoples Day. That was the first time that Boulder had Indigenous Peoples Day, and that was back in 2016, around the same time that a lot of us heard about Standing Rock. And one of the local communities, one of the churches in Boulder at that time invited me to give an opening blessing, an opening prayer for the Boulder rally in solidarity with Standing Rock. And they were very surprised. They had not heard that one of our protocols is to always ask the members of the original people, preferably an elder, for permission to offer a blessing on their land or to bring our medicine to their land.
Grace, may I interrupt just 1 second? It looks like your PowerPoint is not displaying entirely.
Oh, okay.
Is that like a presentation view? We just want to make sure we can view your images.
Oh, you are. Let me see. What is it that you're seeing right now?
It just looks like the smaller version of that.
Let me see if maybe what I need to do is
like towards the bottom, there should be kind of like a presentation.
Let me stop here for a moment, if you don't mind, and then I will renew. And
Okay.
Okay, so I will stop for a moment.
It looks like we're seeing the presentation screen. Oh, there you go. Awesome.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so
Yay, thank you.
because I don't want you all to miss my family, of course, my
Yeah.
father, my grandfather, myself.
Yep, we can see that screen now.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
And so the slide that you're seeing here is the one that I was referring to earlier when I was talking about my place and being here on CoCEAL land. And in this image, I am marching in defense of sacred land that was being impacted by the wall that was being replaced in certain areas, put up completely new by the Trump administration. So on this next one that I was on when I was talking about elders, Arapaho elders, Crawford White and his wife. And then on the right, the Rally for Standing Rock, where I was speaking to the fact that our protocols are that we always ask for permission to bring our medicine to somebody else's land. And in this case, I reached out to a couple of friends who are Arapaho, and they were also very busy giving opening prayers in Denver and other parts of Colorado. So they gave me their permission to offer the opening blessing at the Boulder Rally, which I did. I offered tobacco, and I acknowledged the ancestors of the Arapaho people, as well as the many other original peoples who have come to Colorado, including from the South, to trade, to establish relationships. And to me, that's really important to see the evidence of our travels, to see the evidence of our ancient connections to indigenous peoples throughout this continent. Our roots are ancient. The land still welcomes us when we come in a good way, especially when we are doing our best to serve our communities, both the Chicano Latinx community, the indigenous community, when we work to bring all of these beautiful threads together of our relationships, to strengthen those. One of the things that was impressive and that you might be familiar with was at Standing Rock, when so many people showed up to stand in solidarity against the pipelines. That's when you could really see the strengthening of ties of indigenous people from around the world. So when we talk about land acknowledgements, to me, part of that, it's wonderful to have a formal land acknowledgement on one's website. It's wonderful to give a formal land acknowledgement in institutions at opening events. But beyond that, we also have a responsibility to be good allies. And we do that by standing with the original peoples in their efforts to preserve culture, in their efforts to stand against pipelines, to protect the water, to protect our own public spaces. This image that you're seeing here is of Kumeyaay Nation, the Chicano Nation at Chicano Park in San Diego. This was, I believe this was in 2017. And on this occasion, the Proud Boys and white supremacists had made threats that they were going to go to Chicano Park and deface the beautiful art and the murals and to disrupt the ceremonies that were taking place. When the community, the Chicano Latinx community and the Kumeyaay communities found out about this, we all gathered, we united at Chicano Park, and we stood together against racism. We stood together against fear. We stood together against hatred. And that is really important. That is going beyond the land acknowledgement. That is acknowledging that we have strong relationships. Part of going beyond the land acknowledgement is also doing our job to help with the continual erasure of the indigenous presence in institutions, in academia, at elementary schools, at parks. For example, most recently, we have been working with the Kumeyaay Nation. When I say we, it's Unión del Barrio Original Peoples Alliance, the Bahua Warriors, AIM of San Diego. So we all came together, and this was something that was organized initially by Unión del Barrio in San Diego. This particular action was in response to a park that is located in Chula Vista, California, that is called Discovery Park, and it has a statue of Christopher Columbus. And we felt that this continues to create not only the erasure of the original peoples, but a reminder of what the invasion of our lands created here. The decimation, the genocide, the need for us, for many nations to come together to exchange medicine ways and spiritual ceremonies, because they were made illegal through the colonial practices of the Europeans when they arrived here. So we have been working together to remove the statue of Christopher Columbus for about over a year now. And just a month or so ago, and this is what is really wonderful, some young women in what is now Canyon Hills High School and is also called Mat Kwatay Kunkun, which is Kumiai for Canyon Hills. They've changed the name from Junipero Serra High School to Mat Kwatay Kunkun. And our group, which is now called the Kanapkohan Coalition, came together to help the San Diego Unified School District to name the school, to invite Kumiai leadership to have a say-so, to be part of the collaboration of how schools should be renamed. And that is going beyond a land acknowledgement. That goes to our commitment as Latinx, as Mexicanos, as Chicanos, to know that we as Indigenous people also have to do our part, or should consider doing our part, so that these same symbols of genocide that have affected us and our communities, sometimes we don't realize that a lot of our cultura has been stolen. Our tribal identities have been stolen through the effects of colonialism. And that is something that affects our children, that affects our grandparents and parents. Sometimes they don't talk about it. But if you ask your grandparents, if you ask your parents, they will tell you what they feel about that, how it is that there has been gaps in the continuity of identity. So this is something that I'm very pleased to be a part of. And that, again, to me, this means that this is the work that we have to continue doing. Another way that we have come together as a strong community here in the San Diego area, and we've seen across the country, is the issue of family separation, of seeing young children, babies, teenagers being placed in detention centers, in cages in some instances, being separated from their parents, from their families. And a lot of people have been surprised that Native nations in the United States and in Canada have had such a strong reaction to that and have come forth in strong support that these children need to be reunited with their families. And the majority being Indigenous children. Having Indigenous heritage makes it even more heart-rending for us. The image that you see on the left, that was family separation in Canada, where thousands of Native children were separated, were removed from their families, forcibly taken away, and in some cases adopted out to white families, and lost their identity. Some are returning to their identity nowadays. They're reclaiming their identity. They're seeking out their tribal nations, learning about their culture. And this is something that brings up a lot of intergenerational trauma for Indigenous people, and also for us as Indigenous Mexicanos, as Indigenous Colombianos, Puerto Ricanos, Salvadorans. We have way back memories of this similar thing happening to those who have gone before us. These are all actions that, to me, go way beyond a land acknowledgement. We're working on solidarity, coming together in unity, supporting Indigenous people, original peoples on their land, supporting their right to access their ceremonial sites. That is their land. Defending and protecting the medicine ways is also something that is very important to all of us. Because if you might know that it was only in 1978 that the American Indian Religious Act was put into place, making it okay, giving us permission to practice our traditional ways. That is something that is near and dear to me also as a cultural practitioner, because so many people don't understand what a curandera or a curandero does. They have been impacted by the way that the Spaniards treated the ancestors, by the way that our culture was made to be wrong, or that our cultural ways were demonized. That still happens. And if you think about it, 1978 is not that long ago. It's within my lifetime. I was I was around 18 when that happened. And this is something that continues to harm our communities even now under the new administration. The Kumeyaay Nation came forth and they helped the coalition to close the camps in San Diego. You see here, tribal chairwoman Erica Pinto from Hamul Indian Village. You see other tribal members. You see Councilman Stan Rodriguez there. You see Raul Chrisman and his family of bird singers who helped open and lead the march against keeping children in cages and keeping families separated. This is how we come together. This is how we go beyond land acknowledgement, by joining forces and supporting one another. So at this point, I will ask if you will please stop the recording.